In the cavernous chamber of the Galactic Council's Grand Assembly, the air crackled with tension. Commander Sarah stood before the towering semicircle of alien representatives, her military dress uniform a stark contrast to their ornate robes and bioluminescent appendages. The ancient chamber, hewn from living crystal that normally shimmered with peaceful iridescence, seemed to pulse with an ominous red glow. The human delegation will now present their grievances, announced High Counselor Rudar, his crystalline voice failing to mask the condescension in his harmonics. The other council members shifted in their gravity pods, their collective disdain almost palpable. Sarah took a measured breath, her hands clasped behind her back. The scars on her face, courtesy of the Drachnid bombardment of New York, caught the light as she raised her chin. For 3 solar cycles, humanity has honored the Collective Defense Treaty. We've contributed our resources, shared our technologies, and bled alongside our supposed allies. Her voice, though quiet, carried throughout the chamber. And for 3 solar cycles, we've watched as our colonies were systematically targeted by the Drachnid Empire, while this council did nothing. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. A Viridian representative's tendrils writhed in apparent discomfort. The evidence suggests these were merely border skirmishes. Rudar interjected. The council cannot mobilize the combined fleet. Border skirmishes? Sarah's interruption silenced the chamber. She activated her hollow projector, and the air filled with images of devastated human worlds. 18 colonies, 12 million dead, 3 garden worlds rendered uninhabitable. Her dark eyes swept across the assembly. While you debated protocol, the Drachnids tested biological weapons on our civilians. While you issued strongly worded condemnations, they harvested our children for their neural networks. She paused, letting the horror of the images sink in. We come before this council one final time, not to beg for help, but to inform you of our decision. Humanity has authorized Protocol Omega. The chamber erupted in chaos. Several representatives physically recoiled, while others began shouting in their native tongues. They knew what Protocol Omega meant. Every spacefaring race had heard whispers of humanity's last resort weapon. Ruder's crystalline form actually cracked with stress. You wouldn't dare. The consequences. The vote has already been cast. Sarah cut him off, her voice steel. You have 6 standard hours to choose a side. After that, humanity ends this war, one way or another. In the ensuing silence, the red pulse of the living crystal walls seemed to beat in time with a countdown that had already begun. In the private chambers adjacent to the Grand Assembly, Sarah stood at the viewport, watching the distant stars. Each point of light represented countless worlds, countless lives hanging in the balance. The door chimed, and she didn't need to turn to know who had followed her. Commander Sarah. Ambassador Relax's translucent form seemed to shimmer with concern. The Aquarian diplomat had been one of the few consistent allies humanity had found among the council races. You're forcing their hand. The council doesn't respond well to ultimatums. Sarah finally turned, the reflection of starlight in her cybernetic eye creating an almost predatory gleam. They didn't respond well to diplomacy either, Ambassador, or to evidence, or to the screams of dying children. The Drachnids have powerful allies in the council. Relax pressed, his liquid form rippling with agitation. The merchant princes profit from their slave trade. The Silicon Collective benefits from their neural tech research, and that's precisely why we're done playing by their rules. Sarah activated a small hologram showing a younger version of herself, surrounded by laughing children on a verdant world. This was New Eden Colony 3 cycles ago. I commanded their defense force. The image shifted to smoking ruins, to craters filled with bodies. I had to watch from orbit as the Drachnid bioweapons turned their blood to acid, Do you know what a child's scream sounds like when they're dissolving from the inside out, Ambassador? Relax's form paled to an almost transparent state. Sarah, I don't share that story for sympathy, she continued, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. I share it because New Eden was just a beginning. The Council's inaction, their endless debates and committees, they weren't just bureaucratic inefficiency. They were complicity. The chamber's door chimed again, admitting a delegation of Silicon Collective representatives, their crystalline forms clicking ominously as they approached. Commander Sarah, their hive-mind voice resonated through the room. We have calculated the probable outcomes of Protocol Omega. The devastation would reshape the galaxy. Surely humanity cannot dash. Cannot what? Sarah's laugh was sharp enough to cut. Cannot survive another cycle of watching our worlds burn. Cannot bear the weight of making the hard choice you all refuse to make. She stepped closer to the Silicon representatives, and despite their superior height, they backed away. We tried to be diplomatic. We tried to be civilized. But you mistook our restraint for weakness, our patience for compliance. The human capacity for violence is well documented, the Silicon Collective warned. But so is your species' tendency toward self-destruction. Protocol Omega would give every race in this galaxy exactly what they deserve, Sarah finished. Justice or extinction. The choice is theirs to make. Relax moved between them, his liquid form acting as a barrier. There must be another way. The Council could convene an emergency session, fast-track the deployment of peacekeepers. 5 hours and 23 minutes remain, Ambassador, Sarah stated flatly. I suggest you use them wisely. She turned back to the viewport, her reflection overlaying the distant stars. Humanity learned something valuable these past 3 cycles. The galaxy doesn't respect diplomacy or honor or even military might. It respects only one thing, the absolute certainty that your enemy will go just as far as you will, if not further. The Silicon representatives retreated, their crystalline forms vibrating with what might have been fear. Relax lingered, his liquid form casting shifting shadows across the chamber floor. And if they don't choose a side, he asked quietly. Sarah's reflection smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then they'll learn why the ancient Earth saying wasn't just an eye for an eye, but an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. The Grand Assembly chamber had devolved into chaos as the final minutes ticked away. Sarah stood at the center, a pillar of calm in a storm of panic diplomacy. Emergency transmissions flooded in from across the galaxy, ships repositioning, alliances forming and breaking, civilizations preparing for what might come. 2 minutes remaining, her AI assistant whispered in her ear. The chamber's crystalline walls now pulsed an angry crimson, matching the desperate tempo of the moment. High Counselor Rutter's voice boomed across the chamber. The Council has reached a decision. The chaos subsided, replaced by a suffocating tension. We will not be coerced by human threats. The combined fleet has been mobilized, not against the Drachnids, but to contain the human threat until a reasonable solution can be. The sound that escaped Sarah's throat might have been a laugh, if it hadn't been so hollow. She raised her hand, revealing a simple neural interface wrapped around her wrist. I was hoping you'd say that. Commander Sarah. Relax burst into the chamber, his liquid form barely maintaining cohesion. The Aquarian Confederation stands with humanity. We've confirmed the Drachnid atrocities. We're dispatching our fleets. Too late, Sarah whispered, even as Rudar continued outlining the Council's plans to contain humanity. Her finger hovered over the neural interface. Protocol Omega isn't a weapon you can stop. It's not a fleet you can intercept. It's a truth you forced us to embrace. The interface pulsed once, acknowledging her neural command. Across human space, quantum entangled particles activated simultaneously. Thousands of seemingly innocent human devices, gifts of technology, medical equipment, terraforming tools revealed their true nature. 1 minute, her AI announced, "What have you done?" The Silicon Collective's hive mind voice trembled. Their quantum sensors must have detected the cascade of activations. Sarah's voice carried across the chamber, cutting through the growing panic. "For 3 cycles, we seeded our technology throughout your civilizations. You were so eager to benefit from human innovation, so confident in your ability to reverse engineer our primitive designs." Her smile was razor-sharp. Every medical nanite, every quantum processor, every FTL core we shared carried a fraction of Protocol Omega, waiting, dormant, patient. The chamber erupted in fresh chaos as representatives frantically contacted their homeworlds. Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "You thought you could sacrifice human worlds to maintain your profitable peace with the Drachnids. You thought we would keep playing by your rules while our children burned. But humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology." She gestured to the neural interface. "It was our willingness to do what must be done." 30 seconds, Rutter's crystalline form shattered and reformed in panic. "Stop this madness. The economic disruption alone will be total," Sarah confirmed. "Every piece of human technology across the galaxy will simultaneously deactivate. Permanent, irreversible shutdown. Medical systems, defense grids, terraforming equipment, everything. Some civilizations might survive the collapse. Others..." She looked pointedly at the Silicon Collective, whose entire consciousness ran on human-derived quantum processors. "Won't." 15 seconds. "You can't." A merchant prince screamed. "The death toll will be a fraction of what humanity has already endured." Sarah's voice cracked with emotion for the first time. "This is the price of your complicity, of your silence, of believing you could sacrifice human lives on the altar of convenience." 10 seconds. Relax surged forward. "The Aquarians will support full military action against the Drachnids. We'll commit our entire fleet." 5 seconds. Sarah raised her voice one final time. "Let the galaxy remember. Humanity gave you every chance to choose justice." 4. The chamber's crystalline walls blazed like dying stars. 3. Representatives began fleeing, their composure finally breaking. 2. Sarah closed her eyes, seeing again the children of New Eden. 1. The neural interface pulsed one final time. 0. Across the galaxy, human technology began to die. Ships dropped out of FTL, medical facilities switched to emergency power, defense grids went dark. The Silicon Collective's representatives froze mid-motion as their quantum cores initiated shutdown. The mighty Drachnid war fleets, dependent on stolen human FTL technology, found themselves stranded in the void between stars. In the assembly chamber, Sarah opened her eyes to witness the dawn of a new galaxy, one that would never again mistake humanity's patience for weakness. "Now," she said to the stunned survivors, "shall we discuss terms for technological restoration? I believe you'll find humanity's conditions regarding the Drachnid Empire quite reasonable." In the weeks that followed what became known as the Great Shutdown, the galaxy learned painful lessons about consequence and complicity. Sarah stood once again in the Grand Assembly Chamber, though it was changed now. The crystalline walls pulsed with subdued blues and greens, and many seats remained empty. Some civilizations were still struggling to rebuild after the collapse of their human-dependent systems. The Drachnid Empire had surrendered unconditionally within days, their mighty fleets reduced to drifting hulks in space. The Silicon Collective, those who survived the shutdown of their quantum cores, had been forced to accept organic auxiliary systems, a humbling reminder of their former arrogance. The merchant prince's trading empire lay in ruins, their networks of exploitation exposed and dismantled. The Human Restoration Protocol has been initiated in all compliant sectors, Sarah reported to the newly formed Coalition Council, where Relax now served as High Speaker. The Aquarian Confederation's early support of humanity had elevated them to a position of significant influence. Medical systems are our priority, followed by essential infrastructure. And what are the non-compliant sectors? A surviving council member dared to ask. Sarah's cybernetic eye gleamed. They serve as a reminder. Some lessons must be written in darkness. As she left the chamber, Relax fell into step beside her, his liquid form reflecting the starlight. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. The cost, the deaths, the broken trust? Sarah paused at the viewport, looking out at the changed galaxy. Trust was broken long before Protocol Omega, she said. We just made the consequences visible. She touched the scars on her face, remembering. But perhaps now, with the true price of injustice understood, we can build something better. And if someone tries to test humanity again, Relax's form rippled with concern. Sarah's reflection smiled grimly in the viewport. Then they'll learn what every smarting child eventually understands. The timeout is always shorter than the lesson. In the distance, ships from a dozen allied species work together to rebuild, their lights twinkling like stars against the void, a testament to the new order forged in the crucible of humanity's resolve, and a warning to any who might forget the day humans decided to end the war.